Alright, so the first step, we're going to take all this code and we're just going to make a new file. We're going to paste it here. And I already had an idea for what I was going to call it. I was going to call it like a user input adapter, something like that. So I'm just going to call it UIN ADA, like that, user input adapter. And I'm going to close this. And then we'll just save this somewhere. So new folder, user input UN, and then ADA for adapter. Save that folder. Then have the HTML file, same name. And you can't see that because it's off screen. Well, I have the other full screen on the right, so I guess you can kind of see what's going on. UN ADA, okay, save that. And we're going to go back here, and right now we have the old file path. So I want to take the tab right here, and this is Notepad++, so I'm going to right-click and full file path to clipboard, go back to my browser, and we're just going to delete that, paste the file path, and we shouldn't see any changes, right, because we just cut and pasted a copy of that code. Alright, so I know I need some type of user input class, and that user input class is going to record user input events in kind of like a generic kind of format, like a mouse X, mouse Y, is the mouse down, etc. kind of a thing. And I think I have some code that I was working on that already has some type of structure that does that, so I might want to dig around and find that and reuse some of that code rather than just type it all over again, especially because I eventually want to the code I'm writing right now, I actually do want to add to a pre-existing code base. So since I already kind of solved this problem a little bit in that other code base, I should find that code and reuse it. That way these code bases have a little bit more compatibility when I try to smash them together. So in a drive that I use just for repositories, G for Git. Alright, so this library, and what did I call it? Let's see, global canvas event data. That sounds about right. Global cell, global event, global size. I'm gonna open all of these and see what we have. Global cell, GPU with global cell. Factor. Okay, so there's some other So there's some other information here. That's not quite what I was looking for. I know I had like a variable called mx specifically for mouse x. So I'm gonna look for that in this code base really quick. So let's see what we got here. My timer just went off. I should have reset it when I started recording. MX. So there's our MX, and it's in global events, event data. MX, global event. Okay, yeah, so that's... Oh, okay. I need to scroll up here, obviously. Global event, global cell, HEJS global cell. Okay. And then Control H. I'm going to look for that. Okay, so it's... So I seem to... I see a CX and a CY for cell X and cell Y, but then when I was looking at some other code, it seems to be referencing a mouse X and a mouse Y on those objects. Global event. Oh, I see. So it's the outside global event dot. Okay, so I see what's going on. So I have the top level of my global event object has the mouse X, a cell X, mouse up, mouse down, and then there's like these sub objects inside that global event that I made that have a little bit more data that's like more specific. And so I don't really have to worry about that more specific data for what I'm working on. I just need to worry about the MX, CX, UX, DX is the mouse down, and the current/last event. I believe this string right here is just supposed to be some type of event code, so that I know what this string would be. Would tell me, what class or chunk of code should be handling the event. I believe that's the intention for that variable. So I'm going to take all coordinates relative to canvas. Yeah, so that makes sense. Take that, and I want to look around a little bit more. Make sure I'm not missing anything, but that looks about right. So global event, and then it's just a new object. Okay, so we're adding things on there, kind of willy-nilly. Okay, we got type. Our type variable is just the actual type of the object, right? Because this is JavaScript, there isn't strict typing. So this is just my way of helping me type check if I need to. Okay, so I see what parts I kind of want to salvage. So I'm going to open up my right monitor right now. And I'm just going to paste some of what I think is valuable here. Like the parts that I think are general enough to be reused. Now, we could reformat this in more of like a object literal format. Would there be any benefit? Well, I guess since we're kind of like doing tutorial kind of stuff, there could be benefit there. It's also nice to have everything consolidated in one place, because as I was looking around on the left side of the screen here, it took me kind of a while to figure out, like, what the hell is this global event object, because I've kind of like scattered everything around, and visually it's a little bit, it's not like rocket science, but it's not the easiest to immediately figure out the structure of this global event object. So maybe we should clean that up a little bit and do a little bit of I guess you could call it syntactic sugar. So let's go over here, and we're gonna say, like, actually let's go to the top, and let's say var global event equals, right? And we're just gonna open up an object, and as usual we're gonna do, and we can actually put this object.ceal right here. No need to waste another line. And the other reason why I'm putting the object ceal kind of like very weirdly, like this doesn't look like proper indentation, but the idea is that when this chunk of code gets moved around, I kind of like always want that object.ceal to come along with it. So I'm kind of putting it here intentionally so that it's kind of glued onto there, because I could do like this, right? But then there's a risk of, things getting moved around like this. So sometimes I write code in a way that looks completely ugly, but if I write it in a way that looks ugly, I probably have a reason for why I'm doing that. There's usually always a reason for why I do something. And sometimes it's just me being OCD, but there's always some type of reason. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to paste all of that in there, and we're going to just take off these qualifiers of the dot whatever, right? And indent. And there's a comment there. We'll worry about that later. Current/last event. And I might want to put these comments up here like that. We're going to remove the semicolons, right, because that's not going to be valid inside of our object anymore. And we'll take the type as well. Type probably should go up here. And now what I've noticed is this type here, I think this word might be a little bit too specific, because I kind of want a little bit more flexibility when I'm like moving this from code base to code base. And this is just, right, it's qualified with the prefix for the code base, and then underscore, and then the actual class name. I think this is a little bit too specific of information, because what we really want to know is that the type is called a global event object, right? And we're not going to have more than one of these types of objects per code base, right? Like the implementation might be a little bit differently, but as far as we're only going to have one of these global event classes, and our code doesn't need to know how to handle another implementation in another code base. It just needs to know how to handle its implementation of what a global event is. So this is all the information we really need for the type, is that, oh, it's a global event object, right? And so the intention here, where I have the variable having the same name as the type, that's very intentional. And when I make the constructor, we're going to, I'm just going to do it. So, a function, a new global event object, right? And then it doesn't take any parameters, right? It takes void or undefined or whatever. And then we'll return it over here. Return, and then return the global event. And then in code, because I've been using this word, this token here, global event, GLL_EVE, I'm going to always refer to it like this in the code. So that way, it'll be more obvious that a variable with this name is always an instance of this class type. And also, if you noticed, it's camel case for functions and then snake case for instances. And that's the way I just like to do it. So that way I don't have to worry about things like, oh, is it a noun? Is it a verb? Oh, well, that could be a noun or a verb, depending on how you think of it. Like, I don't want to have to worry about that. I can visually communicate whether it is a function or a variable just by the style of formatting of that variable. And I don't know, there's something I don't like about analyzing the grammar to figure out what it does. I mean, maybe it's just because I sucked in English class. Whatever. So, okay, so we still got some more refactoring to do here. We gotta take these equal signs and we gotta make them into... Oh, I don't know why I'm making them into commas, because that's not correct. We gotta take these equal signs and we gotta turn them into colons, because this is now nested inside of an object. And let's do that. Language. Okay. Global event.type. So that needs to be like that. TYP for type. And make sure we remove this semicolon. And then we're going to need some commas. But then maybe some more explanation here, because this starts with a U, and it's like, why is it a U? And it's, I'm going to say ux equals up. Right, so it's up x and up y. So that's kind of why it has what the u stands for. I get that, you could probably just make that assumption, but I like to be explicit. Like, if I abbreviate things like crazy, I don't want the user to guess, why I abbreviated something a certain way. Okay, and we need some commas here and some commas here. And I'm going to stop recording really quick. This looks about right. This looks about refactored, but I'm afraid I might have gone over my time. So I'm going to stop recording and record again.